Alrighty, so we are now recording. Hey guys, my name is Evan Summers with Summers Wellness. This is the first official interview that I'm doing here on Blab, and I figured there's no better way than to kick this interview off with two people that not only are good friends of mine, but two ladies who I have the absolute utmost respect for, both of which have gone through their own personal breast cancer journey. And this being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I figured no better way to kick this off than to have an open discussion and an open chat with these two ladies. We got Leslie Nance of GoToKitchens.com, who in her own right has become quite famous here on Blab and Periscope with her amazing broadcasts. And my dear friend Aniela McGuiness, who is an actress, a model, a comedian. And these two ladies, if you are not already following them, if you're not already aware of who they are, I implore you to follow them on Twitter, follow them on Facebook. You will never know true inner light like you will from these two women. So, and that's, I mean, I say that with every bit of honesty in my heart, because knowing both of these ladies has made me a better person.
Thank
you.
With
that, I'm going to let me throw it to Aniela first. So Aniela, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us briefly about your story, and then I'll keep an eye open on the chat for any questions that come up.
Okay. Hi, I'm Aniela, everyone. I'm just a year out from having been diagnosed with breast cancer. I was diagnosed September 30th last year, 3 days prior to scheduling a preventative mastectomy. So quite some timing right there. And it was just a little over a year after my mother had died from ovarian cancer. So I was right in the midst of all of that, ready to, I'd finally made the choice to get a preventative mastectomy. I have the BRCA1 genetic mutation for cancer. And so I knew my risk. I was being very proactive and getting checked every 6 months. And it was recommended that at 35 for me to get a hysterectomy and my breast removed. And I decided to do it a little early. I was 30, 31. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do this now. And thankfully, for being proactive, on one of my routine MRIs, they ended up finding a spot that they were going to just watch for the next 6 months because they didn't think it was anything. It was 4 millimeters. And I asked them in that appointment when they saw it, I was like, well, what does this mean for getting a preventative mastectomy? I knew I wanted to get this on this next month. And they're like, well, they probably won't do it if they don't know what this is. So they decided to do an ultrasound. And then from the ultrasound, they found, the same spot, and they decided to do a biopsy. And the biopsy came back positive for cancer a couple weeks later. So if I had not been planning on even getting a preventive mastectomy, they were just going to watch it for 6 months. And so I am now, I went through a double mastectomy October 24th, started chemo towards the end of December, finished chemo April 11th, had a complete hysterectomy May 11th, and finished breast reconstruction at the end of June. So, and in between then, I, with a friend of mine, co-wrote a one-woman show based on my cancer experience and performed it while I was in chemo. And throughout the whole thing, I was working on a photo series chronicling a mastectomy, but using bright colors and humor. And that just came out about a week and a half ago. So, and that's where I am now.
Guys, I'm going to type it into the chat as well, but you can follow Aniela's video journey through the entire breast cancer journey. You can search for My Breast Choice, and you can see on YouTube, you can see all the videos that she shared taking her through this entire journey. First and foremost, grab a box of Kleenex and watch the video of this young lady shaving that beautiful head of red hair. I guarantee you will not only be moved by it, but you will share the video with everyone you've ever known. It is what got it. I've shared that video countless times already, just as an inspiration to people to see what an attitude can do. So I'm gonna post the info in the chat so everybody who's on here can see it. But just search for My Breast Choice on YouTube, and you can see a video chronicle of all the steps and everything Aniela went through. And then you're going to laugh hysterically when you watch all the doctor's office dance party videos, which I want to get into here in a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
it goes back and forth. Well, and I also did, I filmed finding out I had breast cancer, like that phone call.
Yes, that phone call.
So you can actually see that moment of finding out you have cancer.
All right, so let's throw it over to Leslie. I know, a whole bunch of your followers that are on here that have heard your journey as well, but I want you to go ahead and recap it for those people who are watching on replay and for all those people that we share this to as well.
First of all, the photos are brilliant, Aniela. I think that it comes from such a place of light and hope and honesty that I thought that they were absolutely amazing. So I know Evan will talk more about that, but I wanted to say that before I forget to say it. So
thank you.
So I actually had a very different journey. My journey started out as finding a lump in my breast at a very inappropriate time when you don't want to be finding lumps in your breast. It was a very intimate moment when I found mine, and everything stopped. I was like, what's that? This is not right. And I made the statement out loud at that very second, this is going to change our lives forever. And I pretty much, I knew when I found it. I wanted to deny that it wasn't cancer, but I knew it was cancer. I had been fearful of it my entire life. Nobody in my family has cancer. Nobody has any type of cancer in my family. So I go in, I get I go in, I get the mammogram. They're like, well, we don't see anything. We don't see any cancer. And I'm like, well, it's there. You can feel it. I can feel it. Something's there. We need to go deeper. And so I had to talk them into an ultrasound. I talked them into an ultrasound. We did the ultrasound and they thought it looked pretty suspicious. We better do a biopsy. It's something solid. Because a lot of cancers feel kind of gritty when you feel them, especially when when you can feel them through the tissue. They feel kind of gritty, and mine felt like a smooth marble. So they were kind of like, well, we're not sure if we should go any further. And I was like, we're going further. And so lo and behold, did the biopsy, and it's cancer. I freaked out. Literally, laid on the floor for 5 days crying. And I'm not kidding you. Every time I looked at the mirror, I cried. Every time I thought about somebody taking my breasts, I cried. Every time I thought about what was going on, oh my God, I had cancer, I cried. Everything made me cry. It was ridiculous. And so this actually went on for about 5 days. And then I stayed in a funk for about 2 months. And trying to make a decision about what to do, what not to do. And so it was really a lot of turmoil that I went through. And my journey differs because I actually kept my breast. I have both. These are both mine. I had the lump removed. I did not do chemo, although they wanted me to do chemo. I did not do chemo. And chemo is such a personal choice. You have to search so deep inside about whether it's right for you or not. And for me, it wasn't. And so I did not do chemo, but I did have it removed and I did radiation. So totally different story, same ending because we are both cancer free. And so,
yes.
Absolutely. And who would have thought that, you ladies would be interviewed by a guy that has no direct link to breast cancer other than secondarily through so many people that he knows and has known, for years, in some cases. So, amazing. And I think both of you, even though you both took different routes, both of you with your attitude and your personality and the fact that you both took total control of your cancer journey has been paramount in what has helped you get past this. Yeah. Neither one of you, and even in your story, in your introduction, neither one of you sat back and allowed the doctors to tell you what to do. Neither one of you allowed the doom and gloom of the C word to interrupt who you are. And I think that's a lesson to be learned, not just for people who are suffering or are struggling with cancer, but really with any disease, with any health issues whatsoever. The attitudes that I think that you guys have presented has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Aniela, I'm going to throw it back to you because I know I teased this to everybody, but I have got to have you tell your story about what inspired you to create and do your doctor's office dance parties, and because they're an absolute hit. They're a laugh riot. And if I'm not mistaken, you just shared another one where you're crashing other people's chemo treatments now, and forcing them to do doctor's office dance parties. I think somehow, some way, we need to make this a viral sensation where people crash chemo treatments and dance in the doctor's office.
Well, it was one of those situations where I was sitting and waiting for a doctor to come in. And once you get diagnosed, Leslie, I imagine you understand this, you are always at the doctor's.
No, you can upgrade it.
Oh, God. All the time you were at the doctor's, and you're waiting forever. It doesn't, just because you have cancer doesn't mean they go any faster, because everybody there has cancer too. So, so you just lots of hours waiting. And I was waiting at my GP's office, and I swear they forgot about me. Like, I was waiting a good hour in there, and I'm like, there, you get frustrated. And so I was about to, like, I was getting annoyed. I was getting angry, and I'm like, don't you know I have cancer? And so I was gonna storm out. Like, I was building up the courage to, like, storm out and go, excuse me, but, like, have you forgotten about me? Which is not my personality. I don't think I've ever stormed anywhere. But I was annoyed. I was getting angry. And so I was about, like, I was prepping myself to go out into the hallway and give someone a piece of my mind. And all of a sudden I could hear the music playing in the room that was being piped in. And I was like, you know what? No one's in here. Let me just dance. And so I just danced like a crazy person. Like, I danced on the exam table. I danced. I'm like, nobody's in here. I can do whatever I want. And then I was like, let me record this. So I set up my iPhone, hit record, and then started dancing again. And proceeded to take the time to, like, edit it on iMovie on my phone, put it out. And then I went into the hallway to see if somebody was there. And by that point, I wasn't angry anymore. I was like, all right, well, this isn't bad. And so it became a thing that now every doctor's appointment, I was kind of hoping I'd have to wait. That they'd leave me in the room. I'm like, please leave me here. Because then I could dance and film it and put it on the internet. So it became something where I was really looking forward to waiting. Like, I wanted to wait. And then once I started chemo, I would dance before every chemo. And then it made it so that other people wanted to take me to chemo because they saw the dance parties. So people kept going, hey, I'll take you to chemo, because they all wanted to dance with me. So it became this perpetuating cycle of kind of just silly joy, realizing none of this is too serious. And then with chemo, it made it so that I looked forward to chemo, because I knew that every chemo session I would have a different friend come with me, and we would dance and be silly. And then I would edit it immediately. Like, I wouldn't even wait to get home. I would edit it while I was there getting drugged. So I would try to edit it while the Benadryl and the pre-meds were hitting me. So I'd usually have, like, one eye open trying to edit before I got too drugged so I could send it out. And that was part of my joy as well, of like, let's see if I can edit this before I get too drugged. And so I just found a lot of humor. And then the person who I crashed was a mutual friend, like a friend of mine. This woman got diagnosed with cancer, had, sent her my information. And so I talked to her, and I had checked in on her again a couple months later just to see, okay, how you doing? And I asked her, I'm like, can I take you to chemo? Why not? And then when I showed up, I had some fun hats, and I was like, so I know you're shy, but I do a doctor's office dance party, and would you mind doing it with me? And she surprisingly was game. And when I showed her the edit while we were sitting there, she was just laughing hysterically, which was worth it. Like, that was worth doing. And yeah, it was a blind date. I'd never met this woman prior. Like, we talked on the phone once or twice, but I'd never met her in person until I picked her up for chemo that day. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what you've done, that's amazing just in its own right. I think what you've done and I'm lucky in the fact that I've kind of been along for that ride remotely and watched this happen. But I think what you did is you've kind of taken that shattered glass sensation. Like everybody treats somebody with cancer like they're a piece of shattered glass that's waiting to crumble to the ground. Like you're afraid of what to say. You're afraid to touch them. You're afraid to talk to them because you're afraid of what may come out of them if you do. You know, like you don't know what nerves you're going to press. And with what you did with that doctor's office dance party and going through chemo at the same time, inviting others along, pretty much waved a big flag that said, hey, I'm okay. I'm the person I've always been. Join me for a fun ride. And I think it's amazing what you did with that.
Well, I had to call people out. I remember when I first got diagnosed, people called because I told everybody by posting the phone call of me getting cancer because I'm mean. And I was like, here you go. You want to know what just happened? And so people called me up like really tentative that, like, hey, you okay? And I had to stop them mid-sentence and go, I didn't go deaf when I got cancer. Like, you can talk in a normal voice. You don't have to be like overly sensitive. I mean, there are those things that people should not say to cancer patients, like, I knew this person who died of this thing. Don't say that. Like, or the choice that you are making for your treatment is dumb and you should do this instead. Don't say that. Or, wow, your husband stayed with you? What a great guy. That's another one. So like those, but asking someone like, hey, can I bring you to chemo? Hey, what foods are you allergic to? Because I'm bringing dinner over. Hey, I'm going to come by and do your laundry. Like that kind of stuff. Like those tangible things. That's the stuff you ask. Like, hey, you want to go see a movie? Or I'll bring a movie over. So if you don't know what to say, don't say anything because most likely it probably will be dumb.
Right.
And
well, I'm glad you brought up the point that of people reacting, saying to you, hey, I think the treatment options that you're taking is stupid. I'm a wellness coach. I recommend frequently a more holistic approach to treatment, but I will never take that stance of your personal choice is wrong. And that's part of the reason I wanted both of you on this blab, is because here are two shining examples of breast cancer survivors who both took widely different paths in treatment in regards to what one set of doctors tells you is appropriate versus what society is trying to come back and say, oh no, the wellness coaches and the wellness community is stepping back saying, ignore everything that modern medicine tells you to do and go completely holistic. And here's two examples of people who are kind of on the opposite ends of that. And I know, Leslie, you take more of a middle of the road, everything is light approach as opposed to diametrically one versus the other.
Yeah, cancer is what you make it. And I say that all the time. Do you guys hear that? Can you hear me talking twice?
Oh, okay. I think it's fixed. Okay, I think it fixed itself.
Good. It's gone. My other person is gone. Where is she? She's somewhere. No. So I think cancer is what you make it. If you want it to be doom and gloom and horrible, and you want to suffer, and you want to be that person, then that's what's going to happen to you. If you want it to be a dance party, that's what's going to happen to you. If you want to live beyond it and you want it to change your life, like in maximum ways, you can allow that to happen. If you want it to steal your life, that will happen. So I think cancer is what you make it. And my personal hashtag is always light, never darkness. And I have to tell you, I have been a very closed off person. I shared this with my Periscope community today. I've always been a very closed off person. I had a set of friends, and I had my family, and I had my life, and I didn't want anybody to try to intrude on it. And I didn't want to try to intrude on anyone. And so it's just I always kept myself very protected and very closed off. Well, Well, when you get cancer, like Aniela said, you get upgraded to a bunch of doctors. And so if you're going to be closed off and sheltered like that, then those doctors do not respond very well. And so I realized that if I went in with a smile and I went in with an education and I went in knowing what I wanted to do next, that they responded so much better. And I felt like I was getting better care. And so I just feel like for anybody, cancer, people ask me all the time because I did not do chemo. They begged me to do chemo and tamoxifen and all of these things. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And people ask me all the time, oh, how do I talk my sister-in-law out of doing chemo? Well, you don't. You don't do that. Chemo and treatment, cancer treatment is very, very personal. And people have to realize that had you come to, I mean, I could have had just as many people telling me, are you crazy? You have to do chemo. You know, you have to. In fact, I did have those people say that. And I was like, well, I'm not. So there it is. And so, but that was just my path. And so it is so personal about how people progress into cancer treatment. So I just think it's super important, like Aniela said, to just be very cautious about what you say. You know, and I learned to deal with people and their funny things they would say, and I would laugh at them. Like if somebody's like, I belonged to a Zumba class, and there was a girl in our class who was actually dying of breast cancer, and she died. And so everybody would look at me like, oh, you know, like that's my fate. And I was like, gosh, I really hate that happened to Marcy. And then they would start telling me her horrible story. And I'm like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry that happened to Marcy. And now you have a success story to associate with it, me. You know, and so I would just try to flip that back around so it wasn't always the darkness that they were focusing on. So, yeah, which it's super important. I mean, if you don't know what to say, don't say anything. And if you say something dumb, then you just, you know,
Yeah. Well, it's I realized, like, when people would say things that were a little on the inappropriate side, I knew that they were leaving that conversation thinking, man, I just did such a good thing. Like, I helped her a lot. And I know that that's what they were thinking when they left. Like, after somebody's like, you know, you should only do a juicing diet, cannabis oil, no chemo. Like, that's what you should. I knew that they left that conversation going, I just saved her life.
Yeah.
And what's really funny, because you're referencing that conversation. Aniela shared.
Hold on, I'm just moving us in. I know it's getting dark, so I'm moving us into the light.
Oh.
The light, not the dark.
Aniela shared a screen grab yesterday of one of the haters that made.
I get very few, though. I just want to put it. I get very few of those.
Yeah, but this one just kind of struck me, and your response to it, I don't think anyone other than Leslie could have possibly responded as well as you did to this person in the way they reacted to you. And I don't know I'm sure you don't have that up, and I don't want to bring it up and put our blab in jeopardy. But if you could recap it briefly, I would love that.
It was. Through this whole situation, I've been amazed at how kind the internet has been, because I have been showing myself topless on the internet a lot. And I know that the internet can be cruel sometimes. But one of the posts about, I did a video and a blog post about the top 5 weird reasons I love my mastectomy, just to kind of add humor to it and joy and silliness. And somebody had written a comment on the blog post that it was something like, this is the most effing disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. You seem like an intelligent person. So you should know that you could have cured your cancer with raw juicing and cannabis oil, instead of normalizing this barbaric act, like something like that. And I got that and I went, okay. I read that comment, then I stopped. I had to stop and kind of feel what I was feeling. Like, it was one of those moments where I'm like, I'm going to stop for a second and feel this. Does what this person's saying have any validity into how I feel? Like, I know that whether people like what I'm doing or don't like, those are their opinions. Neither have anything to do with me, the positive or the negative. And I debated after that of, should I just delete this comment and make my page only one point of view? And I said I didn't want to do that. I want to allow for multiple viewpoints. I think it makes us better to allow that. But then I was like, okay, but should I just ignore it? And it felt like it was a black hole sucking energy out of my blog. So I'm like, no, I have to respond personally. And other people have mentioned to me, like, don't feed the trolls. And I'm like, you know what? Those are the people who need our compassion and love the most. Because if they're coming at you with anger and with pain, most likely they're looking for something. You know, they're crying out. And maybe people in the past have only showed them, you know, anger in return. So I decided to respond. And my response was fairly simple. Like, I told the person that, you know, you have every right to your opinion. Absolutely. You know, I don't take that away from you. And cancer is a very personal choice. And I chose to do it, you know, this way. But what I am going to talk about is the fact that I noticed that you're very angry, or that you're in a lot of pain. And I am sorry that you feel this way. And I hope that I don't know what your past is, but I am wishing you kindness and love and peace. And that was it. So, like, just very simple, but letting them know that, like, I don't hold what they say against me. It's okay. Like, they have every right to that opinion. But I wasn't going to, fighting fire with fire just creates a bigger fire. So it doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, that was one of the quotes that I saw you put in the list of comments, which I thought was great. Fighting fire with fire only leads to bigger fire, and an eye for an eye makes two people blind. Which I thought that was so simple, and yet just incredibly effective thinking, and so succinct. It was amazing. So I applaud you for the way you responded to a hater. That was great.
Thank you.
All right, so we're about 30 minutes in. If you guys want to stick around for just a few more minutes, I will be happy to take any questions that pop up. I know Sue asked how long out you guys were. I answered for you, Aniela, because you said you were out a year.
Well, I was diagnosed within a year, so really I'm not even out. I'm out a few months.
Right.
Which is why I have the awesome haircut.
Yeah, which you rock that haircut. So.
Thank you.
So everybody always asks me about why I didn't choose chemo, and this goes back to the hair thing. So I've always had really long hair, and they're like, "Oh, is it because of your hair?" And I'm like, "Heck no! I kind of wanted to see what I would look like bald."
That's actually that. Yes. No, that is so, like, thank you for saying that. It's so true. I was so excited to kind of like see what I would look like bald, and it was a great excuse. But you can't tell people that normally, like, yeah, I kind of was. Because everyone's like, you can do cold caps. I'm like, nah, I kind of want to see what I'm look like bald.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Which is totally weird. But yeah, it was kind of one of the things that I was like, maybe I do want to do chemo. And then my husband was like, you could just shave your head if you really want to see what you look like bald. I was like, that's true. I could do that. So I have cancer after all. I could shave my head.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. And you know, Aniela, I've known Aniela for a few years now. I was lucky enough to meet her through a mutual friend of ours. And I don't know how or why we became so friendly so quickly, but there are some people that just cross your path that are meant to hold the key to your heart. And both of these ladies on this blab hold the key to my heart. I checked in with Aniela quite frequently throughout this process, because I'm a third of the country away, essentially. And one of the things that I loved in my conversation with you was the fact that you said part of the reason that you elected to take this particular cancer journey, meaning that the modern medicine route of your cancer journey, was because you were basically wanting to do personal research. You just kind of took it almost like a research project for yourself to see what effects it would have on you.
Well, I watched my mom go through it, so it allowed me a way to understand her that I didn't understand prior to going through this. So, and it allowed me to get rid of a lot of guilt and anger I felt towards her passing and having cancer by me having to, like, chemo at first felt like penance. So,
that's interesting. I never would have considered the cathartic nature of going through what you went through as a healing process to get past the loss of your mother.
But it helped tremendously because I was so angry. I was so angry that she died. I was angry that she had cancer. I was angry at her. You know, how could she let herself have cancer? And then I got cancer, and I was like, oh shit, that's how. Got it. So yeah. So for me, it was a blessing because I didn't know how else to get rid of that anger.
And Aniela, Sue wants to know, did you find it easier to go through it than to watch your mother?
Yes, 100%. It was so much harder to be the caregiver because I was, and that's when I went through, was part of the reason I went through it the way I did. I was very open with it. I was very honest. I was very public, partially because I didn't want my husband to be overwhelmed or burdened how I felt with my mom. Like, which part of the reason I was angry. You know, she was very quiet about it, and I felt like I needed more help. My dad was there as well. Like, my dad was very involved, but we needed more support. And my mom was so private that we didn't feel like we were allowed to ask for outside support from friends and family. And as a caretaker, it's overwhelming. It really is. And it's frustrating, and you get angry, but you're not allowed to be because you're not the one who has cancer. And then once I got cancer, I was like, oh, this is so much easier.
Wow.
And it was. I also had a lot easier cancer than my mother did. My mother was terminal. I had 4 millimeters. I had tiny, tiny cancer, and I got new tits. So.
Benefit.
There you go.
Yep.
All right, so let's go ahead.
You get new boobs.
What'd you say, Leslie?
She gets to see herself bald, and she gets new boobs.
Mm-hmm.
She does. And we all got to watch the process as they came in.
Mm-hmm. I know, because I kept posting those to the internet. I have been so topless through this whole thing. I never was prior to this, and now I'm like, free the nipples. Yeah. This hypocrisy. Showing my boobs, and it's not in like a sexual way. I'm just really like, I really want to show the hypocrisy, the fact that since I now don't have nipples, I can show them as much as I want. I'm like, this is silly. So I'm gonna show them.
And you see, I can show mine all day, but I choose not to.
Mm-hmm. And that's your choice.
I don't want to blind people.
When I'm doing public speaking, the first thing I always say is, when we're talking about cancer, I don't care who's in the room either. I'm like, okay, so here's where the cancer it was this big. And yes, these are my boobs. Because everybody, as soon as you say, it's my favorite thing, actually, it's my favorite game now, still to this day, is when you say you had breast cancer, everybody does this. You're like, yeah, I know, they're great, right? I mean, and they're mine. And I just, and I mean, same thing with you. Just the other thing of it. It's so funny. They look right down. And I remember the lady that told me that. She was like 85 years old, and she came into our shop, and she's actually a dear customer. And she was like, are you okay? You just don't look like you feel well. I was like, oh, I have cancer, and I just started bawling. And she was like, oh, honey, I had cancer 25 years ago. And look at me, I'm totally fine. And I was like, oh, and slowly people were brought to me like that. But she said, here's the best thing about breast cancer. And she told me that. And I laughed for 2 days about that. So then I wanted to tell everybody, so everybody would stare at my boobs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh, yeah.
There you go.
Definitely. Well, I love that after you tell them that, they're like, can I touch them? And I'm like, yeah. Go on. I'm no feeling in them anyways.
Nice.
Go ahead.
Yes. When I had my lump, because I took 2 months before I had it out. And so I let everybody feel it. I'm like, look I want you to know what it feels like when you feel one. So here's what it feels like. And all my girlfriends, they were like, we never knew we were going to totally get to feel you up. And I'm like, I know, but you got to feel what it feels like. I mean, because I wanted them to have an understanding, if they felt it in their breast, what it was like, so it wasn't like a mystery, like, is that something? Is that not something? So now I'm on a prevention campaign now for women to actually never get breast cancer in the first place. I wear a survivor t-shirt. I mean, just like right across my boobs in big pink letters, it says survivor. whatever. And I always tell people, if you've never had cancer, I don't ever want you to have one of my t-shirts. I don't ever want you to wear this t-shirt. And so, and it just puts this thing in their head. They're like, oh, me either. And so I talk to a lot of women about knowing their breasts, like feeling of them and touching them and looking at them, because so many women are so, their hands are tied by their religion or whatever, not to touch and feel and look at their breast. And I'm like, that's silly. You got to look at them, people. You got to look at them.
Well, our husbands or partners should not be the ones finding our breast cancer.
No.
We should, they know our breast better than we do. Yeah. And that is not okay. We should be feeling ourselves up all the time. And there should be there's nothing wrong with it. There's no stigma. I actually think everyone who's watching this right now should go and feel yourselves up. Just kind of feel around. There's nothing weird about this. We're all going to do it together at the same exact time. It's okay.
I always tell women to do it twice a month. If you're still having your period, you should do it right around your period, and you should do it 2 weeks after, because your breasts are different during your period than they are after and before your period. So make sure you know what they feel like all the time. Like mine are lumpy bumpy during my period. And then when sorry, Evan. And then when that goes away, it's like, oh, well, they feel normal again. But yeah, I mean, it's, then here's the worst one. Here's the one that no woman wants to do, is to stand up and bend over and
to watch them sag
as they're hanging. And they're like, that's really scary to look at. Yeah, well, you got to do it though. You need to do it so you can see if there's any dimpling or anything weird hanging on, with gravity having a hold of them. So instead of your bra or your hand. So yeah.
I couldn't have paid for a better transition to the way I wanted to wrap this up. So I'll go to you first, Leslie, and then I'll let Aniela have the final word. But I'd like you to give your advice to not only to prevention, but what would your advice be to somebody who is going through the struggle right now? And what would your advice be to someone trying to do what they can to avoid breast cancer in the first place?
So the first word of prevention that I have for every woman that is watching, if you don't have breast cancer and you don't plan on getting it, is to stop worrying about it. Stop worrying about it. Stop freaking out that you might get breast cancer. Stop listening to all the propaganda that says that, every woman by the age of 50 is going to have breast cancer. I know that's not what it says, but just stop stressing about it, because that stress that you're inflicting on yourself is more dangerous than anything else that you're doing. So stress is so paramount. My medical oncologist asked me, Leslie, what happened 5 years ago? Did something really stressful happen 5 years ago? And it was so intuitive. And I was like, yeah, my mom had a stroke and it was really stressful. And she's like, well, because we estimate that these tumors, when they're the size that yours is, that they're probably 4 to 5 years old. And so I was like, oh my God. And I was like, did stress cause my cancer? And she's like, it probably started then. And then your body did not shut those receptors off and you were not feeding your body properly. So yeah, it could have even taken care of itself had you been doing different things or not, maybe not. But yeah, so yeah, maybe that's what happened. You never know what happens. You can't ever put your finger on what happens, no matter how hard you try. You can only speculate of why your body created cancer. But that's my number one. If you're going through it right now, my best advice for you is to never, ever, ever think that it's going to kill you. Stop thinking and stop worrying about if it's going to kill you or not. Start focusing on what's happening right now, right today. And that's how I started living my life, is everything faded away. My future faded away. My past faded away. And everything that I do is focused on right now. Now, I have plans for the future. I have hopes and dreams for the future, but I don't live there. And I have things that have happened to me in my past, like breast cancer. My past is over there, by the way, but like breast cancer and things, and kind of bad things that I don't even like to talk about. But I know that they happened, and I'm aware that they contribute to who I am as a human right now, but I don't live there. I live right now, right today. And so that would be my biggest thing, is to live in the very moment that you're in right now and stop worrying about what's going to happen in the future and what's happened in the past, and stay off the internet. Stop reading blogs about women who have breast cancer, because their journey is not your journey. Your journey is something different. So high five.
Preach that. Amen.
Yeah. So stay off because it is not doing you any favors. You need to choose what if you're reading it because you are looking for an answer, stay off. If you're reading it because you want to be educated about what's happening in your body, then that's fine, but don't read somebody else's opinion. Read what is factual and what is actually happening. So yes, stay off the internet. It was the best advice I got.
Mm-hmm. Nice. You're not going to get a degree as Google doctor degree. No. That's why you have your doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Leslie. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Aniela, your turn.
Okay. I want the questions again.
Simply, to try to wrap it up, I want to get what would be your advice to somebody who is going through this struggle?
Mm-hmm.
And what would your advice be to somebody who is concerned about getting breast cancer in their future?
Okay. All right. So I'll start like Leslie. I'll start with the you don't have cancer, but you think you might category. So, I mean, in all honesty, it's knowing your family history. Like, really go and talk to your mom and your dad. See if to really know your family history. I come from a different side than Leslie did because you don't have anyone in your family who had cancer. My mother died the year before I got diagnosed. So I knew I had the genetic mutation for it. Like, I had a high chance of this happening. So I knew that. And it meant that I could be very proactive. And so don't just sit there and worry about it. Like, be proactive. If you have a relative who has it, who's young and who, talk to your GP, talk to your doctors, really get facts. Don't go searching on the internet. Get facts from your doctors. And then don't just sit there and worry about it. Go and get tested. Since I had the genetic mutation for it, I got tested with a mammogram and a MRI every 6 months back and forth. And then I also got a transvaginal ultrasound and CA-125 blood work done every 6 months. And so that way I was on it. And I felt like I was at least doing something rather than just sitting and worrying. Because if you sit and do nothing and worry, it will drive you crazy. It will drive you absolutely nuts. So, and then if you don't have a family history of it, just breast awareness. And as well, like Leslie was saying, don't be freaking out that you're going to get breast cancer. It's mainly just to know your breast, know your body, be very aware of your body. And when you first do your first exam, you're going to find lumpy, bumpy weirdness. And that does not mean you have cancer. It just means that you need to know when those lumpy, bumpy, when do they show up? A week into your period? Do they show up? Just know your body. And if something changes, then go talk to your doctor. So that's kind of for women who don't have it, be proactive.
Awesome. Thank you guys both. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you both elected to be here for my first official Blab interview. So thank you so much. I hope that everybody who's watching this live, as well as people who watch it on replay, get a lot out of this. I know, even as much as I know about the two of you, I learn more every time we talk about this topic. And it's not a topic that most of the time would even impact me directly, but it lets me know both of you on a deeper level. And I'm thrilled that you guys allow me in to that point. And you're allowing everybody else in to that point as well, to really get a sense of what your journey is. So maybe it's not nearly as scary for them as well. Leslie, go2kitchens.com. You can also follow Leslie on Periscope, Twitter, all your social platforms at go2kitchens.
Right,
everywhere. Aniela, I know for you on YouTube, it's My Breast Choice. Is there any other website you want to promote?
So YouTube is My Breast Choice, has all the silly fun videos and not so fun honest videos. You can go and go to mybreastchoiceshow.com, and that has the blog and it has links to everything else. I'm also fundraising right now. I've got a GoFundMe for making a documentary based on the one woman show that I performed while I was in chemo.
I want you to bring that to Atlanta. You know I do.
I know. Which is why I filmed it, so that it could go everywhere. So if you want to help get that edited, the site is gofundme.com/mybreastchoice. And then Instagram, I put tons of this on Instagram, and I actually found, yes, don't go on the internet for, reading other people's stuff, but Instagram was my support group. If there was somebody who was kind of negative, I just didn't follow them anymore. And I ended up getting a group of women who were all going through this at the exact same time as I was, same age range. And we would just kept, pumping each other up and being silly and checking in. And it was wonderful. So Instagram was a great resource for me. And I have friends now in Australia who went through this at the same time as New York, like all of us at the same, it was beautiful and joyful. And we still check in, and we're all, coming out of it at the same time too. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I watched the Facebook following skyrocket through this process, and I can only imagine, the link through to Instagram had a big impact on that.
Mm-hmm. Instagram was a lot of fun, and then so as well, it's on Facebook too, facebook.com/mybreastchoice. But the Instagram one is fun, super weird, all kinds of fun, weird stuff, and that's Aniela McG, so the same Twitter handle that I have for Instagram.
Okay. All right, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Evan.
Please, you're welcome,
Yeah,
and
you.
please follow both of these ladies, so you can stay in touch with them, and you can see when they release new content on social media. Thank you so much. I'm Evan Summers with Summers Wellness. I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in. Have an awesome evening. Good night.
It's just us.